Marvel and DC Chaos, Dumbledore powers unleashed across universes. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 111, The Void Flickered. A red lantern ring levitated in front of Russell, exuding bursts of power fluctuations containing anger. Good, the first one has arrived. The anger on Russell's face subsided and turned into a faint joy. He beckoned gently, and suddenly the red light ring fell into his palm. However, Russell did not wear the ring, but chose to seal it with magic and put it away. Just the power of the angry red light he can't see yet. In the DC world, the emotional spectrum is made up of 7 unique forms of energy inadvertently created by cosmic beings. It is an energy field stimulated by their emotions and has a unique emotional color. Red light for anger. Orange light for greed. Yellow light for fear. Green light for will. Blue light for hope. Green lantern for mercy. Purple light for love. In fact, at the beginning, there were only green lights in the universe, but later due to various accidents, other light clusters began to appear one after another. But this does not prevent the power of every emotion from being extremely powerful. As for the black and white lights, don't think about it for the time being. So since he came to DC, Russell's purpose is also very simple. That's the entire visible emotional spectrum and the lamp beast. He is the master of power, not the user. And once the 7 powers are completely recovered, it will be a huge help to him. Russell can return to Marvel and create a new light cluster. Whether it is against Sithorn or Mephisto in the future, it will be a trump card. Similarly, at this time, the world is also a weapon against Darkseid. And now, the lamp ring is the key that opens the door. But since each lamp ring needs a corresponding extreme emotion to be recognized, Russell naturally hit the target on Batman. Although he hasn't read many DC comics, he still knows that Bruce Wayne is a famous lantern rejecter. The quality of the other party's emotions is very high, and all kinds of lamps and rings have come, but they have all been ruthlessly rejected. This also means that as long as he can make Bruce generate various extreme emotions and extract them and put them into his body, then he can use this to echo the lamp ring. And now the results also show that his plan was successful. Russell looked up at Batman with his eyes closed and frowned, rubbed his hands, and smiled expectantly. Lovely little pudding, I put so much effort into creating a world for you, don't let me down. Inside the port warehouse, Bruce, who was holding the corpse of the female clown, suddenly felt that his anger disappeared instantly, and he became a little dazed for a while. Seeing this, the death knell showed a disdainful smile on his face, and scoffed. At this time, you dare to be distracted, I don't know how this waste like you will be chosen. Bang bang. 3 shots in a row, sealing all the angles Bruce can dodge. Bruce was creepy for a moment. Although he knew that the chances of disengagement were not great, he chose to roll to the left. Ring the bell. A crisp crashing sound sounded. Bruce opened his eyes and found a golden red armor blocking his way. Sorry I'm late, Bruce. Under the face armor, Russell said with an apologetic look. Bruce was a little silent, and at this time, the anger and sadness of holding the corpse slowly emerged again. Let's deal with the problem first. When the words fell, Bruce rolled over and landed at a suitable angle, constantly pulling the trigger in his hand. Without the slightest hesitation, he wanted to kill the other party. But what Bruce didn't expect was that the extremely destructive bullet strike had no effect on the opponent's uniform. Bulletproof attribute. Same as his bat armor. Wow, oh, since the famous Iron Man is here, then spare your life as a waste. Hehe, I just don't know if there will be a woman to block the bullet for you next time. Maybe you can try to find a few more girlfriends, Bruce. The death knell mocked mercilessly, and his fingers tapped a few times on the arm of the warframe. Then he took a step backwards and suddenly disappeared into a blue vortex. Since you know that someone will come, why didn't you arrive earlier? Although he didn't want to, looking at the corpse of the female clown, Bruce couldn't help but say something full of resentment. Russell sighed. I just wanted to give you a little more time to think about it, but I didn't expect them to come so quickly this time. Hearing the explanation, Bruce falls silent. He knows that his complaint is not justified. But the thought of the other party blocking the bullet for himself becomes more painful. However, there may not be no way to save it. Russell said suddenly. Bruce's eyes lit up all of a sudden, and he looked at Russell with a glowing look. What a way. Russell opened his palm, holograms were projected on the armor, and 6 brightly colored gems slowly rotated. This is the Infinity Stones, something unique to my universe. They are space, time, reality, power, heart, soul. As Russell introduced, each gemstone shone in response. And the method I am talking about is the reality gem and the soul gem. The soul gem is responsible for taking back the soul from the place of death, and the reality gem is responsible for regenerating the flesh, and the combination of the two can completely resurrect a person. And the soul gem is already in my hands, it is a reality gem. Russell walked up to Bruce and stretched out his palm. There have been many deaths of heroes from other universes, so we have to resurrect more than just the Joker. Bruce held his palm and stood up, looking expectant. I hope you didn't lie to me. Russell replied solemnly, of course, this is our last hope. Soon, with the help of Bruce, the location of the reality gem is determined. After a big battle and Russell's serious injury, the two finally got the reality gem at an ancient altar. Then the two returned to the Bat Cave, and under the energy of the huge arc reactor, the soul gem and the reality gem lit up at the same time. Russell put his hands on the connector made in advance. The next moment, more than a dozen heroes dressed differently were resurrected out of nothing. Seeing such a scene, Bruston became excited. Russell gave way at this time. It's your turn, Bruce, just recall in your mind the person you are going to resurrect, plus strong emotions. Bruce nodded heavily and put his hand up. The next moment, with his imagination, the female clown was resurrected. This time, Bruce did not reject the other party and jumped while holding him, or even kissed himself. But he didn't let go of his palm. He remembered someone again. It was another cosmic man, his adopted son, the second-generation Robin Jason Todd. After only a second of hesitation, Bruce began to recall again. A few seconds later, an emaciated but spirited young man appeared. Seeing his adopted son again at this moment, Bruce almost cried with excitement. He wanted to pull out his arm, but another voice sounded in his heart. Bruce, since you can resurrect everyone, why can't you have more? Those you put in your heart, but never forgotten, come on. Go for it, Batman faltered. And as the voice grew louder, he finally couldn't give up that thought. He wants to resurrect his father and mother. Resurrect all those you couldn't save. Reality. Russell stretched out his hand, and suddenly an orange-yellow smoke appeared from Bruce's body, and then submerged into his body. In an instant, an indescribably thick aura of greed erupted from him and penetrated into the void. Bite. There were waves in the void again. The next moment, a voice full of greed sounded. Stealing and kidnapping is only for greed. Take what I deserve. Whoever despises me will be afraid. The light of the orange lamp is brilliant. Intelligent life has been locked. Earth life Russell from Sector 2814, the gully of desire in your chest is difficult to fill. You belong to the Orange Lantern Legion. Episode 112, Vega Galaxy. Okara Star. This is the base camp of the Orange Lantern Legion. But unlike the other lights with a large number of members, the user of the Orange Lantern is only one agent, and its name is Laughlitz. The reason is ridiculous. It's not that there are no intelligent beings chosen by the orange light. But when the emotion of greed reaches a certain level, it is extremely domineering possessiveness. This results in the orange light ring bearer having only one ever. Laughlitz is the winner. He killed all the creatures that tried to use the Orange Lantern energy and made them lose their physical form, turning them into the embodiment of the Orange Lantern energy. With this, a ghost army was established. At this time, on the huge lamp beast Greedy Python, Laughers opened his eyes. He felt a new orange light ring holder appear. The greed in his eyes was thick and hot, and his mouth was confused to himself. It's mine, it's all mine, it's all mine. Mine, not yours. In the next second, he turned into a red light and soared into the sky, submerged into the universe. Suddenly, Bruce came to his senses. He took a step back and gave up resurrecting the others. In just a moment, that greed almost made him fall into the abyss. It's an opening for desire, and once he steps out, he wants something more. Time passed quickly, a month passed. During this time, he also fought several times with the heroes. But what he didn't expect was that he really fell in love with Joker Quinn. That convergence of soul frequencies was unbelievable. And at the same moment in the outside world, Russell received a steady stream of love. Likewise, with the emotional explosion, the purple light came as promised. Fear and confusion are connected. It's hard to sleep alone on the darkest night. Slim fingers into the ring to change makeup. The world's lonely love purple light. Intelligent life has been locked. Earth life Russell from Sector 2814, you have deep love in your heart, welcome to join the Starstone Legion. Zamarin, Star. This is the base camp of the Starstone Legion. Suddenly, the Star Blue Stone Queen opened her eyes, revealing a strong puzzlement. Strange, why did the purple lamp ring choose a man? Huh? It turned out to be an Earthling. Carol Ferris was even more surprised for a while. Because her boyfriend Green Lantern Hal Jordan is an Earthling, and she herself is an Earthling. Looks like it's time to go back. In the simulation world, Bruce is still fighting. But alas, Thanos came to Earth with 4 other Infinity Stones. The Avengers were defeated, with countless deaths and injuries. In the end, Thanos got all the Infinity Rough Stones and snapped his fingers. In an instant, all life was annihilated in half. In the midst of the ruins, Bruce knelt on countless ashes, unable to accept the fact of defeat. Until a cold wind blew through, he remembered what Tony Stark had said to himself before he was annihilated. As long as there is one person left, there is hope for the world. Bruce chewed this sentence repeatedly, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. Hopefully. Yes. I'm alive. I can't sink. If I have lost hope, then how can the world be saved? Bruce got back on his feet and cheered up the others. In an instant, powerful emotions reappeared. Fear of the day, pain of the night. The heart is raging. Everyone is lost in the flames of war. Look up at the stars, the light of hope never dies. Intelligent creatures are locked. Earth Life Russell from Sector 2814, you have the ability to instill firm hope in others. Welcome to the Blue Lantern Corps. Soon, exciting news appeared. Hero Ant-Man discovers that through the quantum realm, you can go back in time. Bruce leads the team through time to regain 6 rough stones. Then, with the snapping fingers of the Hulk, all the Annihilators were resurrected and returned. But at the same time, the Thanos of the past has also returned. The Great War is breaking out again. Until the last chance arose, Bruce did not hesitate to bring the Infinity Gauntlet. But how could his mortal body resist the washing of the power of the 6 Infinity Stones? In an instant, his body began to be corroded and destroyed. But for everyone. For the world. For the victory of everything. Batman Bruce Wayne's will at this moment broke through the limit and was elevated to a higher position. He is a mortal body, comparable to the gods. Hit that snap finger with all my strength. At this moment, Bruce's strong will, even Russell himself was a little shocked. It seems to be the most indestructible substance in the world, which will never be worn out. The next moment, a grand voice descended. The day is clear, the night is clear. Mighty Ray, there is nothing to hide. Infidel's chaotic party, fear my divine light. Green light is everlasting, the light of all worlds. Intelligent life has been locked. Earth Life Russell from Sector 2814, you have a strong will to overcome fear. Welcome to the Green Lantern Corps. The next moment, a green light fell from the sky, turning into a green lamp ring and falling in front of Russell. This is the last one, and the yellow light of fear and the green light of mercy need to think of other ways. Russell took the new lamp ring and said with some sighs. Pity this emotion, Batman is difficult to give birth. He had previously tried to get some miserable heroes close to Bruce. As a result, the guy didn't have much sympathy except for a few words of encouragement. As for fear, this one can't help it. That requires scaring others, not Batman itself. But that world is full of false characters, and fear itself is also fake, so it is completely impossible to summon the yellow lantern ring. In the next second, Russell withdrew the magic array. Even if you can't get a new light ring, then this time, Bruce's world is the end of the show. Of course, Russell is not a stingy person. The other party provides such a big contribution, he will steal the tire back from the clown and return it. He believed that the great Dark Knight would be satisfied with this reward. In a trance, Bruce came to his senses. He felt as if he had had a long dream that he had saved the world. The most outrageous thing is that I seem to be in love with the Joker, and even seem to be very happy. Thinking of this, Bruce shook his head and hurriedly banished the idea. It's really a dream, otherwise it's too outrageous. Bruce got up from the bed with a smile and went to the hall on the first floor to see who Alfred was calling, and suddenly became more relaxed. But when he walked into the Batcave and looked at the wheels on the Batmobile, he suddenly woke up. Aren't both AFU and the wheels lost? What the hell is going on here? In an instant, Bruce fell into the real and dream again, unable to tell. Suddenly, the door of the Batmobile opened automatically, startling him. The next second, he saw a familiar person coming out of it. Tony History. No, who the hell are you? Bruce's pupils shrank into needle tips, in disbelief. Russell waved his hand and soothed, Don't get excited, Mr. Wayne. What you experienced before is indeed a dream, and my name is not Tony Stark. As for the name, can you call me Russell, profession? It's a mage. Bruce silently stepped back and approached the weapon, and to his other party, the other party sounded like a superpowered psycho addicted to games. Mage? I'm still a warrior. Russell shook his head helplessly. Batman's suspicious personality is really good. But it doesn't matter. Russell looked gentle and smiled. As a previous reward, I intend to let you see the horror of this world in advance. What world? Bruce replied while already touching the bat dart in the dark compartment of the table behind him. Real world, of course. Russell raised his right hand and snapped his fingers the moment Bruce threw the dart. In an instant, the space is easy to change. The Batcave has turned into an endless desert. Bruce screamed and fell into the desert from midair, and after spitting out a mouthful of sand, looked at Russell suspended in midair in disbelief. Moment. In an instant, he was replaced with a new location without resistance. If this was a crater, he could hardly imagine that kind of consequences. There is no doubt that this is an extremely terrifying ability. At this moment, he saw Russell speak indifferently. Our guests are here. Bruce looked up with a feeling in his heart, and suddenly saw an orange light break through the atmosphere and fall from the sky. Episode 113. The orange light fell straight to the ground like a shooting star. Suddenly, the desert was like a calm lake being thrown into a stone, and the rolling yellow sand rolled around like a wave more than 10 meters high. Bruce's face changed, one foot forward, the other foot backward, instinctively arched his hands in a defensive posture. But without wearing the bat armor at the moment, he really has no confidence that he can survive this kind of natural disaster like sand. But the next second, he was shocked to see that when the yellow sand giant wave came to him, it was like having life, automatically parting the two sides, without touching himself at all. Bruce instinctively looked at Russell floating in midair, and saw the other party smile slightly. No need to thank me. Sure enough, it was him. Bruce's heart sank slightly. This was another ability that he couldn't understand for the time being. At this moment, he heard the other party continue to speak, but it's really hard to watch the battle on the ground. It's still heaven. When the words fell, Russell raised his palm to Bruce and twisted, and suddenly the sound of glass shattering sounded. In the next second, Bruce was surprised to find himself wrapped in a regular tetrahedron like glass, and flew into the air. At the same moment, an orange ray suddenly appeared and shot towards him. For a while, Bruce didn't have time to react at all. The next moment, he was surprised to find that the ray passed through the glass and through himself, but did no harm at all. No, not penetration. Bruce reacted immediately. Just now the ray did not hit him at all, it just looked like it. The two sides are completely in different spaces at this time. This is a pocket space transformed from a mirror space, and everything that happens in the outside world has nothing to do with the space you are in, so you can watch it with peace of mind. Russell explained simply, ignoring the shock in Bruce's eyes, and turned his head to look at the leader of the Orange Lantern who was slowly floating. It is a humanoid creature with a jackal-like head with a Mohican-like mane on top, but underneath a human body. At this time, wearing an orange tight-fitting suit, his hideous face and bloodshot eyes were full of greed. The moment he got the orange light ring, Russell knew the other party would come. Because in the face of that kind of greed all the time, the owner of the orange lamp must not be able to bear others to share the power. And as the leader of the orange lights, Laflitz looked at the unique spatial structure in the sky with blazing eyes at this time, and water continued to flow from his mouth. Harvest, huge gain. He didn't expect that this new thief actually had space ability. But this power will soon be used by him. Laflitz turned to look at Russell, his eyes full of greed. Earthlings from Sector 2814, I'm looking forward to turning you into a ghost member. Thank you for the eternal life I have given you. Hearing this, Bruce's heart sank in the pocket space. Alien. And aliens with strong malice. Before he had always set his sights on Gotham, thinking that it was the evil of the earth. As long as it is handled well, there will be no problems in this world. But now it seems that the crisis beyond Earth looks even more terrifying. And the word Sector 2814 is also worth pondering. Bruce turned to look at Russell again. I was surprised to find that the other side was calm and terrifying, and there was not a trace of fear and worry in his eyes. Strong self-confidence. This thought instantly appeared in Bruce's heart, and he was a little stunned for a while. Russell didn't care about the threat of a jackal, just looked forward to asking, did you bring the orange light battery and the light beast? I'm actually lazy and don't want to run more. Hearing this, Laflitz suddenly fell into a rage. He couldn't stand anyone daring to touch these two things, even if he wanted to. That's mine, it's all mine. Die. Laflitz raised his fist, and suddenly, the orange light above continued to emit lasers towards Russell. Russell didn't do anything. But just as the ray was about to hit, the space in front of him flashed with a faint light. A huge ancient magic mirror was born out of thin air, and the ray hit it and immediately reflected back. Laflitz's face remained unchanged, and he cancelled the ring to release energy. Then after the body deflected slightly to avoid the attack, after pulling out an afterimage in the air, the fist covered with orange light slammed into the mirror surface. Suddenly, a dense cracking sound sounded, and the mirror turned into countless fragments and fell downward. But Laughlitz was not proud of this punch, but looked ahead with his eyes in surprise. The person behind the mirror disappeared out of thin air. But he obviously didn't see the other party leaving from any direction. Laughlitz naturally looked at another human not far away, and immediately saw a shocked look in the other party's eyes. And the other person's gaze is looking at themselves. "Are you looking for me?" Suddenly, a cold voice sounded in his ears. Laughlitz's scalp was numb instantly, and then he didn't want to think about it, and without hesitation, he twisted his body and punched back. But this punch is empty again. There is no one behind him at all. But at this moment, he felt a sharp pain in his scalp. The long hair on his head was caught. Laughlitz instinctively wanted to resist, but the next moment he found that the space changed instantly. I suddenly came from the sky to a concrete floor. Immediately after that, a terrifying huge force came from overhead, and suddenly, the body couldn't help but hit the ground. In the sky. Bruce's eyes were first shocked, then exclaimed, and then gradually became completely unbearable to watch. "It's miserable." He saw that the jackal was covered with hair on the top of his head by Russell's palm, constantly on the concrete floor turned into sand, frantically falling left and right. There is no resistance. How powerful this alien looks when he just appeared, and how miserable it is now. Bang! Laughlitz sank deep into the concrete floor, moaning meaninglessly, and his eyes that were still full of greed just now, were in a daze. Russell blinked his eyes and looked down at his palm, and suddenly a large handful of yellow hair fell from the palm of his hand. "I'm sorry, I felt too good just now, and I didn't hold back a little." In fact, he also wanted to continue, and it was very good. However, looking at the other party's bare scalp, he was still embarrassed to say it. In the sky, Bruce was also silent. Even he felt that it was somewhat excessive. After a few seconds, Laughlitz also slowly came to his senses. After feeling the clear heat of the sun above his head, he trembled and reached out and touched it. Soon, a soft touch came. The next moment, a mournful scream sounded in the desert. "My hair! Damn humans! Damn it, the Ghost Legion listens to my orders and tears him apart." In an instant, countless rays of light frantically poured out from Laughlitz's lamp ring. Episode 114. The orange glow is like a sun rising from the desert. Above the sky. Although Bruce was in the pocket space at this time, he could not feel any breath from the outside world. But his heart instinctively had palpitations. It's like this orange sun contains some terrifying monster. In the next second, Bruce's face suddenly changed. He guessed wrong. Where is this monster? It's a bunch of monsters. I saw countless alien creatures with strange appearances and hideous physiques, but wearing the same orange tight combat suits, constantly condensing from the light. Their bodies are translucent, and although their eyes are a little dull, they carry pure greed. Bruce was instantly worried. There are too many of these monsters right now. There are thousands at a glance, and each one looks very powerful. In the eyes of this tactician, this is a subversive reversal of the battle situation. At this time, Bruce turned his head and found that Russell's figure reappeared in the sky at an unknown time. But he did not see the expected tension on the other party's face, but was extremely calm. He instantly understood why. The opponent's ability to move space should be very simple to escape. No deadlock at all. But what will happen to the Earth when such a group of apparently ill-intentioned armies appear here? He didn't think that the other party would pat his ass and walk away. At this moment, an endless roar sounded, attracting Bruce's attention. He saw all the monsters take off. For a time, the picture of thousands of monsters flying and charging together, like dark clouds pressing the city, was extremely shocking. Overwhelming, as if it can crush all obstacles that dare to stand in the way. Especially those thousands of eyes looking at one place at the same time, it is simply daunting. Compared with this, Russell alone seems extremely lonely and small at this time. It seems that in the face of the rolling torrent, it is destined to be shattered. In the desert, Laughlitz looked hideous, but at the same time looked up to this scene with great pride. That's his ultimate whole card. All the owners of the orange lantern ring that he once killed were made into ghosts and included in the lantern ring. So, in a way, he alone is the Orange Lantern Legion. And now, that human being is about to become his slave. The distance of hundreds of meters is just a blink of an eye. Just when Bruce thought Russell was going to be engulfed by the monsters, or flee and give up, the other party moved. However, that was not any way he imagined. Bruce watched in shock as Russell faced thousands of terrible enemies and rushed against the current. Find death. Laughlitz sneered. Too impulsive. Bruce frowned and shook his head. But the next moment, the two widened their eyes at the same time and burst out foul language. I saw an explosion of orange light in the sky happening endlessly, and the monsters where Russell passed were crushed with one blow, and they couldn't even resist. A second later, Russell emerged unscathed from behind the 100-meter team. And behind him, there are long, exploding dragons in a row. For a while, there was no other sound except for the sound that was still exploding. Bruce's mouth opened slightly, and he looked at Russell's eyes a little distracted. This instantaneous reversal, as well as the strong contrast with one enemy and 1,000, made him suddenly feel as if he was still dreaming. Otherwise, how could such a shocking and outrageous scene happen? On the ground, Laflitz is no better. His body trembled slightly, unable to believe that his ghost legion was destroyed in an instant. Fake, absolutely fake. Even the most powerful Green Lantern warrior won't have this kind of power. By the way, it must be that I supply too little energy, it must be like this. Laflitz pulled out the orange lamp mark on his chest hard, and suddenly pulled out something like a horse lantern. This is the battery of the orange light. The next moment, huge and pure orange light energy erupted from inside. Suddenly, the corpses of those ghost legions that had fallen to the ground were recondensed. This time, they have become more condensed and their breath is even greater. Charge. Kill me. In a flash, a flame holy sword of hundreds of meters in the sky descended from the sky, crushing all the ghosts in an instant. Crushed hope too. Laflitz was like a duck strangled by the neck at this time, unable to make the slightest sound. He looked at the scene in front of him with fear in his eyes, unable to understand why this happened. Why is the legion he is proud of as weak as a swarm of ants in the hands of the other party? Flip your hands and be crushed. At this moment, a faint voice came from the sky. Among the 7 lights, you should be the weakest. Russell looked calm, without the slightest hint of triumphant complacency. You are so greedy that if you make every ghost wear a ring, you can use the power of the orange light. Then I will win? Laflitz asked instinctively. No, you think too much. Russell shook his head slightly. I mean, that should last a few minutes. Laflitz was stunned for a moment, and then completely mad. He frantically releases the energy from the orange light battery in an attempt to rebuild the Ghost Legion. Suddenly, a large amount of orange light like a thick liquid was released. But instead of turning into a Ghost Legion, they tumbled and began to condense. A few seconds later, an ugly python with a length of hundreds of meters and a huge and fat body appeared. This is the light beast of the orange light, the python of greed. And its image is more like a huge footless insect than a python. Greed is also its nature. At the moment it was released, it felt that Russell contained huge energy in his body, and immediately opened his blood basin without hesitation and wanted to devour the other party. It's so ugly, I decided to change the lamp beast. Russell was expressionless and reached out and waved down. The sky changed in an instant. The clear desert sky turned into dark clouds in an instant. The next moment, the dazzling white thunder of the dark world is illuminated. In the thunder that shocks the soul, hundreds of lightning bolts the thickness of buckets fell in unison, falling on the body of the greedy python like a storm, and then turned into countless plasma to drown each other. Although the screams were muffled by thunder, it was still possible to see that the python of greed was struggling. Russell was a little surprised. It's worthy of being a lamp beast, and it's still somewhat capable. But that's it. Russell's waving palm slowly lifted, and then shook it suddenly. Suddenly, the terrifying plasma turned into thousands of thunder swords that floated slightly, and then instantly disappeared into the body of the greedy python. In the next second, a terrible explosion happened. A dazzling white light flooded all sight, and the world turned white at once. More than a dozen seconds later, Bruce opened his tearful eyes and found that the world had changed back to its original form. The sky is cloudless, and the blazing sun shines in the desert. But only the python disappeared. The ending is clear at a glance. Recalling the heavenly power that had just been like the end of the world, Bruce fell silent. He thought that jackal was terrifying enough. But in comparison, Russell's strength is like a god. Suddenly, Bruce felt that his previous behavior was a little ridiculous. He was in Gotham like a family. What black masks, penguins, frozen people are simply too pediatric. Except, of course, the Joker. He didn't doubt that the madman would do something terrible. And now, Bruce can only expect Russell to have good intentions for the world. Or, at least, don't have problems until you find a way to resist yourself. Bruce looked down at the jackal who was still alive. At this time, the other party shivered and curled up in the hot desert, as if in the ice and snow. The fiery greed in his eyes has long since disappeared. Instead, it became a thick fear. He could see that the other party was frightened. Bite. Suddenly, Bruce suddenly raised his head. He heard a voice with great majesty suddenly sound in the void. The dark day is vast, the white night is clear. Evil gangsters, fear my divine light. Burn by fire, and those who oppose me die. Fear is the source, say is the king. Intelligent life has been locked. Earth Life Russell from Sector 2814, you have the ability to inflict great fear on others, welcome to the Sinister Legion. Episode 115, a yellow meteor fell from the sky and turned into a lamp ring hovering in front of Russell. It fell together, seemingly looking forward to the new owner in front of him, bringing him. Yet the next second, arcs of electricity in the void appeared out of nothing and wrapped around the lamp ring, forming a magic seal with complex patterns. The yellow lantern ring tried to escape, but only shone a moment before it completely dimmed, and then was held in the palm of a hand. Russell took the ring and looked down at Lafflitz, who was terrified. He didn't expect to get the yellow light like this, but it was a surprise. Now, the last green lantern ring representing mercy is left. However, Russell did not intend to let the other party go, wanting to trigger pity. Because it's false, it's not from the heart, and it can't be recognized by the emotional spectrum. Russell stepped out, and the figure instantly came to Lafflitz. Who the hell are you? It is impossible for anyone to get two light rings at the same time. Lafflitz shouted in horror as he kept backing away. This has shattered his perception. Two? Puppy, you don't know what you're up against. Russell's palm opened, and 6 lamp rings of different colors suddenly echoed and emitted a soft light. Seeing this scene, Lafflitz's eyes widened sharply, and his emotions became extremely excited. The next second, he shouted out in disbelief, "It's impossible, the emotional tube can't go wrong, and the Guardians of the Universe on the OA star won't allow it." However, before he finished speaking, his gaze fell on a pair of eyes full of magic. The lucidity in Lafflitz's eyes suddenly lost. Russell nodded in satisfaction, and then said in a seductive tone, "The owner of the orange light. Now tell everything you know about the Guardians of the Universe. After that, you will feel more peaceful than you have ever had." 10 minutes later, Russell withdrew the orange lamp ring on the other party's finger, as well as the orange lamp battery like a horse lamp. Lafflitz, who had lost his strength, suddenly became smaller and smaller, and finally turned into a thin jackal soul. This is the original form of the other party. A little beast killed for gluttony. After Russell casually sent the other party to God, he began to think. He basically understood the information of the Guardian of the Universe now. This is a group of intelligent life forms that have existed in the universe for a long time, and have advanced technology and civilization a long time ago. In addition to its own strength, abandoning emotions, and controlling the Green Lantern cluster, they can also drive the power of the green light battery on the OA star. Russell wasn't afraid of the other side. But in addition to the power of the Guardians of the Universe on the OA star, there are thousands of green light warriors. It's still more troublesome to completely win the green light. After all, this is a group of warriors distinguished by their will and can definitely fight to the death. However, Russell did not intend to kill him. His goal is to fully control the power of the emotional spectrum and create his own 7-colored lantern cluster. And the Green Lantern warriors are still very qualified subordinates, at least when it comes to fighting Darkseid. So for now, at least a little planning is needed, and if you cannot lift the table, try not to lift the table. Soon, Russell returned to the Batcave with a stunned-looking Bruce. Returning to the familiar territory, Bruce finally came to his senses. Looking at Russell at this time, he couldn't help but ask, "So, you're really a mage?" Russell naturally walked to the side of the Batmobile and unloaded the reel, without raising his head. "Didn't you see it just now? That lightning was not summoned with a click. Isn't it a mage?" Bruce wanted to ask a mage why he could punch thousands of monsters with one punch, which was outrageous. But looking at Russell's skillful movements in front of him, he still twitched his face and couldn't help but ask, "That's very mage." "But Mr. Russell, why are you unloading my wheels again?" Russell turned around, showed an incredulous expression of "Why would you ask such a thing?" and said very angrily, "Didn't you just reward you for seeing the terrible aliens, so of course I have to recycle the last reward. You think everyone is so rich as you. And I don't like this again word, but I bought this wheel from the clown for a lot of money. Obviously you stole it." Bruce nodded and suddenly realized, "That's fine." After a pause, Bruce tried to ask, "However, if you lack money, I can buy it, and you can live with me for a while." Russell shook his head, "I don't like living with men." "I don't like it either, but we don't sleep in the same bed." Bruce almost shouted. However, thinking of asking for someone, after thinking about it, he still said with a sincere face, "Let me be honest, Mr. Russell. I don't know if I can learn your magic. I am willing to pay tuition, the price you will open." Good guys, use superpowers, huh? Am I that kind of person? Russell put on the tire for a second, turned around and nodded. No problem. Actually, I really like the black tea made by Mr. Alfred, it is very strong. By the way, which one is my room? At night, Russell occupies the largest room in Wayne Castle. In fact, money is not important, a big bat who learns magic can provide a lot of exchange points. The next second, Russell makes an enchantment closure and then turns on the system. After killing the leader of the Orange Lantern, Lafflitz, the system increased by more than 5,000 exchange points. If you want to completely control the emotional spectrum when the time comes, that's definitely a huge number. Start the simulation. After Russell silently recited a sentence in his heart, the system began to continue to simulate the character card of the Bone King. The previous simulation was 39%, but this time it has skyrocketed to 92%. End of this simulation. Power loading. The first is the 53% mana value, and the physical fitness of a necromancer skeleton at the Bone King Eclipse level. Then there are up to hundreds of magic. Supernatural consciousness, floating monster thunder, high-level magic shield, penetration boost, magic enchantment life, high-level all-power enhancement, rejection of life cocoon, enchanted demon eye, fraud intelligence, earth wave, necromancy legion, forced taunt, dimensional slash, ignoring ice, acid, and thunder, blessing, banshee crying, wishing to the stars, dark souls, immortal blessings. Desperate aura, creation of high-level undead, life absorption. Russell's mind moved, and in an instant, the blue magic array in the room was illuminated. More than 700 miniature magic arrays slowly rotated, and a few of them even exuded a terrifying aura. Bone King, this is hanging on the wall. Russell sighed and withdrew his magic power, and suddenly, all the magic arrays disappeared. This time the harvest is to some extent the most since he simulated. Not only in terms of magic types, it includes almost all types. What surprised him even more was that he also obtained 6 super-level magic this time. Heaven and Earth change. After use, it can change a large range of environment, and even change the surface of the planet, and the terrain and climate are determined by the user. Sacrifice of darkness and abundance. This skill creates a wind of death, and the creatures killed by this magic effect are counted. Fearsome black goat cubs, controlled evil god cubs, with a time limit, will be summoned accordingly. Sword of Heaven, extremely terrifying single-body magic. The attack power completely surpassed the modified version of the Vashandi Holy Sword that Russell used with all his strength. The Locust Plague of the Apocalypse, catastrophe-type magic that can summon terrifying locusts, with at least 100 digits or more. Osiris's Ruling. This magic Russell feels a bit uncomfortable, because its effect is to change the value of justice in a creature. This has a rating effect in the game, but in reality, I don't know what it does. But the last super magic is a surprise. Make a wish to the stars. As the name suggests, it is a wish-making skill. However, if the wish is too large, it will be distorted. For example, if Russell wishes to become the master of the universe, then he is likely to be swallowed by the most powerful person in the world, and another wish is fulfilled. But in most cases, as long as it is not more than the power of the user itself, it can be achieved. Of course, this magic cannot be used indefinitely, that would be outrageous. In addition to consuming a lot of mana, this magic still requires the magic item Wishing Ring. Otherwise, using this magic will trigger random events, usually with terrible consequences. But Russell wasn't panicking. The Wishing Ring is 100% later in the item redemption, although it can only be used 3 times. But these 3 times may be able to turn the tide of the crucial battle. Episode 116, Early Morning. Bruce watched his old butler pour Russell a cup of black tea, and then talked about it together with laughter, and suddenly felt that he was a little redundant. He couldn't help but think of the day when a footy was the two so harmonious. "Affu, bring me a cup of black tea too," Bruce shouted with his last stubbornness. "Young master, you are still growing your body, drink milk." After the old housekeeper said something very seriously, he directly snapped a glass of milk in front of Bruce, and then left the living room with a plate. "I'm all 36. Bruce looked at Russell's playful eyes and was embarrassed to speak. After drinking the milk in one breath, he quickly diverted the topic. "Mr. Russell, when do we start learning magic?" Russell swallowed the last bite of steak, wiped his hands, and stood up. "Right now, come with me." Bruston became excited. He didn't expect the other party to be so happy, and he thought that at least he would ask for an outrageous price. Soon, the two came to the Bat Cave. Russell picked up a marker on the table and randomly drew a six-pointed star magic array on the ground. Bruce's smile froze, and he looked at the barely formed magic array on the ground and asked, we shouldn't start with the basics, and it's not too impatient to practice at the beginning. He really didn't know anything about the occult, and he didn't have much confidence in getting started. Russell glanced sideways at Bruce and said with disgust, "Who said I taught you? I don't have the patience to teach you to live a family. I have a better part-time worker to teach you. By the way, let you understand what is sinister." Russell didn't say the last sentence, and the golden magic power on his hand lit up and slapped the magic array. The next moment, a haggard illusory face appeared. Bruce looked at the portrait and frowned. He felt that the appearance of this person flying over the leaves looked a little unreliable. "Done, found this goods." Russell stood up, grabbed Bruce's shoulder, and said seriously, "Ready? Ready for what?" Bruston felt bad, wanted to retreat, but found himself caught deadly. Russell showed a kind smile. "Of course, I will take you to experience the charm of magic. Can I refuse?" Bruce tries to make a final struggle. A second later. Lendon, former Bertram Psychiatric Hospital. Bruce knelt on the ground with his hands on his hands, spitting out the milk he drank in the morning like a waterfall. Russell took a picture with satisfaction, then shook his head and sighed. "Fu knows that he will probably be very sad." Bruce said angrily while retching, "You're not, you." "Yes. Another teleportation, you." He felt that if he hadn't been in good health, he would have been able to spit out even bile today. Russell should not have heard. How can the group teleportation have such an interesting scene now? After Bruce stood up with a pale face, the two walked towards the mental hospital. Along the way, neither the security personnel nor the nurses seemed to have seen the two of them. Bruce was more certain when he saw the scene. Even if you can't learn magic, you must learn a certain amount of occult knowledge, otherwise you will be too passive to meet a mage in the future. Soon, the two made their way through a long corridor and stopped in front of a somewhat dilapidated single ward. Russell holds his hand on the ball doorknob. Araho cave open. As the faint light lights up, the door lock opens automatically. Bruce once again showed that he had never seen the world, and then followed him into the room. In the next second, a strong smell of smoke came out. Bruce slapped his hand in disgust and looked inside as he walked. It is a room of about 10 square meters with only one single bed. At this time, a scruffy man in big trousers sat on it. Constantine, who was studying whether to be a craftsman once, stuffed the magazine into the bed without a trace, before looking up. In the next second, Constantine's eyes suddenly lit up, and he got out of bed barefoot and walked to the pale Bruce in 2 steps. "Brother, bring me some leaves, count me as I owe you a favor." Bruce pursed his lips without explaining, but turned to look at Russell. "Can I beat him?" After seeing Russell nodding, Bruce did not hesitate to raise his sandbag-sized fist. Of course, his main purpose is to see what level of magic is on the other side. Then a punch fell, and Constantine fainted without even screaming. Bruce was even more silent, and now he was already sure that this guy was 100% unreliable. At this moment, there was another knock on the door behind him, and a man's voice sounded outside the door. "Constantine, are you there?" In the next second, Constantine stood up at the surprised gaze of Bruce, without the slightest trance after fainting. "Borrowed, big man." Constantine patted Bruce's chest muscles, extended a thumb and squeezed past the other. He pushed open the door and said with a look of surprise, "Chase, why are you here?" Chaz Chandler, the other party, can be said to be his only friend in this world. However, since the other party got married, he has not met the other party. "What's wrong with you?" Chase pointed curiously to Constantine's face. "A little magic." Constantine rubbed his face, and suddenly the black blue disappeared. Standing in the back, Bloomstone's face was livid. Obviously, the other party was just lying to him. "These are your new friends?" Chaz looked at the two in the room and asked. Constantine seemed to be asked this question for a moment, and looked back. "By the way, who are you?" "Absolutely, you don't know." Chase was a little speechless, worried for a while whether his friend had lived in a mental hospital for a long time and really became mentally ill. Bruce is also a little too casual. "Are you really not afraid that you are a bad person?" As if seeing Bruce's thoughts, Constantine smiled wickedly. "Dude, you're still too tender. Compared to demons, it is simply too obvious that humans have malice." After speaking, Constantine looked at Russell and raised his eyebrows. "You said yes, this colleague." Russell sat casually on the only chair in the room, leaned back and bowed his head slightly. "Maybe. Still, don't you care about caring about your friends?" I can smell the demonic stench on him. When the words fell, the faces of the other 3 people in the room changed instantly. Episode 117, Demon. Bruce's face suddenly became nervous, and he looked at Chase outside the door with a defensive expression. At first, he only thought that what Constantine said was a metaphor, but then it came out of Russell's mouth, and it must be true. But this is also outrageous. First mages, then aliens, and now even demons have appeared. Blue suddenly felt that he would not be surprised if an angel appeared tomorrow. At the door, Constantine's face was anxious, and he immediately chanted a spell in his mouth, and his eyes emitted a golden light to look at Chaz. After a few seconds, he breathed a sigh of relief. Chase does have a demonic aura on him, but he is not possessed, but contaminated. Constantine reproached in a not very good tone, "What's the matter? Didn't I warn you not to touch things from the mysterious circle?" Fortunately, there is no big problem this time. But his words had no effect, and Chaz said with a bitter look, "I really don't have a problem, but my daughter is dying. She is possessed by an unknown demon and does not know how long she can hold out." Hearing this, Constantine's face turned pale all of a sudden. 10 years ago, he summoned demons to solve the enemy. But I didn't think that the demon not only killed wantonly, but also took away the soul of a little girl. The scene of the girl falling into hell and screaming becomes his lingering nightmare. And now Chaz's words once again brought back painful memories to him. "Constantine, you have to save her, he is your niece." Chaz shook his friend hard and shouted, I will. Constantine repeated with a pale face, but clearly not in good shape. Just then, he heard a voice behind him. "If you don't mind, we want to go along and take a look." Russell patted Bruce's shoulder and explained to the two at the door, "This kid hasn't seen a demon yet, so he's curious." "I'm not curious at all." Bruce looked at the increasingly dangerous look in Russell's eyes, and nodded very heartily, "I'm really curious." Constantine was not interested in asking why the two came to him at this time. "However, I thought that I could take care of a colleague together, so I still agreed." Soon, the crowd arrived at the home of Chas Chandler, who lived outside London. At this time, on the bed in the back room was lying a girl with her limbs tied and in a coma. Once again, Constantine uses the magic eye. He felt a strong aura of black magic on the girl, but the soul was not in the body. Correspondingly, there are no demons in it either. He is late, and the demon has already left with the girl's soul. Constantine turned pale all of a sudden, not knowing how to explain it to his friends. Syllable. Feeling a pat on the shoulder, Constantine almost jumped in fright when he fell into a petrified state. He looked back and saw that it was the strange peer. But in this situation, it is useless who comes. You can't go into hell to rob, that's 100% suicide. Don't talk about it. Constantine carried Chas on his back, squeezed his eyebrows, and said silently with his lips. Russell blinked and said curiously, "This human demon left you a message, why are you stunned?" Constantine was embarrassed to say that he didn't see it, and he was even more embarrassed to ask the other party to help. But since the demon deliberately left the message, there is still hope. Ahem. I'm not very skilled in this, I'll find a helper. Constantine clasped his hands together and condensed a golden ball of light made of magical power. He threw it forward, and suddenly the time ball turned into a rippled portal. The next moment, a woman in a sexy nurse's suit walked out from inside. As soon as she came out, she began to complain that Constantine interrupted her shooting movement. But when he turned his head again and saw Russell, he suddenly closed his mouth. She lowered her head and swallowed her spit fiercely, quickly hiding the fear in her eyes. When he looked up again, the strange look in his eyes had disappeared, and he looked at Constantine with a smile. "What to do with me this time? I still have something urgent over there, I have to go back quickly." Constantine was a little strange how this woman could talk so well this time, and usually needed him to promise to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. But no better, for some aspects, he is a little afraid of the other party. The person in front of her was named Alice, a nurse. But it was a demon named Asa. However, unlike other demons, the other party is not bad. And occupying Alice's body is also to save the other party, otherwise once out of the body Alice will be taken away by the disease. But there is also a disadvantage to this, that is, some desires are too exuberant. After Constantine said all the general information, the nightmare nurse happily agreed. After sensing the girl's body, she nodded, "That demon left an opening, I can communicate with this child." After saying that, her body glowed blue, easily linking to the girl's soul. But just when Constantine wanted to ask where the girl was being locked up now, a consciousness directly occupied the communication channel. The next moment, a demon phantom appeared on the face of the nightmare nurse. It first laughed wildly and mocked Constantine as a trash, then left an address and disappeared. In the room, Bruce narrowed his eyes slightly. It's so obvious. In his opinion, the purpose of that demon was not the girl at all, but Constantine. Russell didn't speak, looked like he didn't care about himself, and directly pulled Bruce and left here directly. Constantine did not stop it. After all, this really has nothing to do with the other party, there is no need to risk it at all. Next, after asking the nightmare nurse to take care of the girl, he and Chaz hurried to Los Angeles. In the room, the nightmare nurse sat nervously on the edge of the girl's bed, not daring to move. A moment later, a voice suddenly appeared in the room. "You seem to be afraid of me, why?" The nightmare nurse stood up at once, lowered her head, and said respectfully to the void in front of her, "The breath on your body, I once sensed it in an adult." "What kind of breath?" Questioning came again in the air. The nightmare nurse immediately responded, "Angel-like breath, but not quite." Hearing this, Russell manifested from the air, "Who is he?" The nightmare nurse suddenly tensed up, and her body trembled. I don't know who he is, but I met each other once." Russell thought for a moment and raised his palm to put it on the head of the nightmare nurse. "Remember when you met each other?" The nightmare nurse did so, and did not dare to make any changes. In the next second, 2 runes appeared in Russell's eyes. He sees it. It was inside the Limbo prison, where a man in a black trench coat and a black top hat on his head was walking on a rock. It's just that the other party's eyes are hidden in the shadow of the brim and can't see clearly. Russell released his palm, his eyes a little confused. He knows who this image in front of him is. Phantom Stranger. A man who is said to be able to go to heaven and hell, but is always alone, is like a stranger who can stay out of everything. It's just that he doesn't understand why the Phantom Stranger is somewhat similar to his angelic power. It's a pity that this person belongs to the existence of the divine dragon who can't see the head, and there is no way to find the other party. But this man is not bad in the information he knows. Phantom Stranger helped the Justice League several times, only to disappear after the danger was lifted. So there's no danger. Russell pressed his doubts to the bottom of his heart, glanced at the nightmare nurse shivering in front of him, and said, "If you can meet each other again next time, you can call my name. As for the remuneration, in hell, as long as Lucifer and the First Fallen don't want to kill you, I can save you once. Do you agree? Since you want the other party to work, the remuneration is still attractive. And he is relatively proficient in space, and it is easy to save someone to walk." The nightmare nurse nodded quickly. In his opinion, this was simply a big bargain. Russell flicked it casually, and the magic mark belonging to him was printed on the surface of the opponent's soul. As long as the other party does not want it, he can untie it himself. After the explanation, Russell disappeared again. There's obviously a big bargain to pick up over there in Los Angeles, and he won't miss it. Episode 118, Los Angeles. Constantine and Chase hurried to the address left by the demon as soon as they got off the plane. It was a weird building built in a dark corner, and the exterior walls were decorated with a large number of hideous and terrifying reliefs of hell, which looked chilling. Something like this appeared in the City of Angels, huh? It's really ironic, Constantine sneered and knocked on the closed door. In less than 2 seconds, a pig-headed man in a suit pushed open the door, as if he had been waiting for the two of them for a long time. "Please, Mr. Hell Detective, my master has been waiting for a long time." The pig-head gave a disgusting smile and got out of the way. Constantine took a deep breath and walked inside without hesitation with Chaz. Soon the two walked through the front hall and came to a hall. Chase spat out in an instant. The hall was full of blood, and a huge pool full of minced human flesh corpses in the middle was exuding a strong stench. "It's no small trick. Chase, we're in trouble." Constantine looked solemn. As far as he knows, the so-called City of Angels in Los Angeles is really guarded by angels. But right now, the demon can swagger out this kind of corpse feast. Obviously something has changed. But there was no turning back, and now I have to bite the bullet. However, after a dozen seconds, Constantine found that he still underestimated the demons here. Pushing open the last door, a noisy and chaotic voice and chaotic aura suddenly rushed in. It's like a nightclub at 12 p.m., and many scarlet-eyed humans with crazy faces are venting their desires. On both sides, 10 deformed demons were playing harsh instruments while drooling and looking down. At a certain point, there will be demons throwing happy humans into the vintage black and white silent films of the 20s that are being screened. Laugh and admire the various tortures of human beings, and listen to the silent screams. Chaz glanced at Constantine, who shook his head suddenly. There is no salvation, they have already sold their souls. Hearing this, Chastain glanced at Constantine again with a strange gaze. He remembered that the other party had sold his soul more than a dozen times, and now he was not alive. Constantine suddenly became angry and explained in a low and hurried voice, "Am I selling? That's a lie, my soul will only belong to myself. Which liar have you ever seen pay the principal?" At this moment, a pig man more than 3 meters tall came out of the fence on the second floor, smoking a cigar in his mouth and staring at Constantine. "The Lord is coming." Constantine gave chase a cautious look, and then walked down the stairs to the second floor and came to the other party. "You know, I love Los Angeles." The pig man showed an exaggerated smile and said to Constantine, "Every day in this city, a large number of people sell their souls and are obsessed with falsehood, and coming here is as intimate as returning to hell." Constantine snorted coldly, "So this is your holiday park?" The pig demon shook his head and smiled proudly. "I prefer to think of this place as my hell branch." The city had nothing to do with him, and Constantine did not forget the purpose of this visit. "Say, what do I have to do to exchange Tracy's soul back?" He knows the devil's routine, and leaving the address is nothing more than wanting to trade with himself. "Smart." The pig man smiled satisfactorily, then unbuttoned his clothes and pulled his skin open, revealing the flesh and blood cage inside. A little girl is panicked and helplessly imprisoned inside. It is Chaz's daughter. This familiar scene once again stimulated Constantine, and he seemed to remember the year again. The next moment, the demon let out a deafening laugh. "Constantine, I really can't get tired of your expression now." The pig man tore open his ugly skin. Suddenly, a huge demon with a snake tail, bat wings on its back, and horns, came out of it. Constantine turned pale for a moment and took a step backwards. "Impossible, shouldn't a powerful demon like you be in hell? How can it appear in the world?" "The demon in front of you is the same massacre 10 years ago and the murderer who took the soul of the little girl. Demon Nigel. This is an extremely powerful demon, and it stands to reason that it should not be able to stay in the human world." Miguel leaned down, his golden pupils looking directly into Constantine's eyes and laughing. "My little cutie, when did you have the illusion that I was back to hell?" "When you summoned me out, but without establishing a binding contract, I don't need to return to hell at all." Looking at Constantine's incredulous expression, Nilgai said even more proudly, "You know, Constantine, I've been observing you for 10 years. Watch you go from a low-level rookie with a mental collapse to a deceived black arts expert. Nigger's ambitions are so big that he wants to turn every city into his own chain of hell branches. And he also needs an agent who is in the same league as him. That's Constantine." The demon straightened up and said condescendingly, "It's simple now. I want you to get rid of the other 5 demons who robbed me of my business in Los Angeles. Succeed, this soul is yours." After Constantine was silent for a second, he directly agreed. Everything is because of himself, he is not qualified to refuse. After leaving the devil's lair, Constantine asked Chaz to wait for the results and walk the streets alone to figure out a way. But at this time every pedestrian he met looked stunned and directed him to a bar. Constantine frowned, knowing that someone was looking for himself. But when he went to the bar, he didn't expect that an angel was waiting for him. The woman claimed to be the Angel Queen of Los Angeles. She doesn't want the city of angels to be poisoned by hell, and hopes that Constantine can get rid of the demons hidden in the city. After a transaction of several hundred million, Constantine discovered that the demon address given to him by the other party was the demon that the demon Nigel asked to get rid of. Originally, he was worried about how to find the other party, and immediately agreed. Constantine hurried away through the back door of the bar, not seeing 2 men in trench coats pushing open the door and walking in after him. "Constantine, why do you want to do it again?" Hearing the door slam, Angel looked back with a smile while drinking red wine. In the next second, she was stunned all of a sudden, and her expression became solemn. Russell ignored the other party's expression, turned his head and smiled. "Look, Bruce. I said that there are really angels in the city of angels. You still don't believe it, you have to bet with me. Now your Batmobile is now mine." Bruce was expressionless, and forced the twitching corners of his mouth. He doesn't remember when he was going to bet on the Batmobile. Russell's eyes widened suddenly. "Why don't you believe it yet? Then bet a little bigger. How about that Bat Fighter?" "Bruce, Russell nodded. "Okay, then it's settled." When the words fell, Russell turned his head to look at Angela. After looking his eyes up and down, he said viciously, "I didn't expect to be a birdman with a demon smell. Now hurry up and show your wings to me. I'm going to clear the portal for God." Episode 119. Angela's face turned cold. She could feel a lot of magic contained in the other party, and knew that this was definitely a mage who was not weaker than Constantine. But in an instant, a pair of huge white wings burst out, and a white light sprinkled down to illuminate the darkness. Angela Schwanming suddenly lit up, her body floated off the ground, and her voice was layered with great majesty. "Human, do you know what happens to blasphemy? This moment is exactly like the scene of the arrival of angels in the Bible. Bathe in holy light, sacred. But this angel is not trying to bring gifts to the world, but to bring down the punishment of anger. Bruce looked at the scene in front of him and opened his mouth slightly, and his eyes were extremely moved. Even aliens with far more terrifying power than before. Angel. Really angels? This was so unexpected. Originally, he thought that the so-called angels just had some special powers, similar to the mythical species. But I never thought that the so-called angels were really the same as in the Bible. He could clearly feel an indescribable taste of holiness, and inexplicably felt like he wanted to repent. Bruce quickly concentrated, and at the same time secretly pulled the corners of Russell's clothes with 2 fingertips. His meaning is clear. That is, whether to come to a wave of tactical retreat. No shame. He didn't doubt that Russell could beat the other side. But I think that since there are angels, then there must be heaven, and it will be troublesome to fight a group down. Seeing that Russell ignored himself, Bruce secretly tugged twice. Can't afford to lose, can you? Russell turned his head and suddenly showed an expression of "You big dog is so picky, I look at the wrong person." Bruce felt like he was going to die of anger. But before he could speak, Angela, who felt ignored a few meters away, shouted again in annoyance, "Human! You provoke. What's it called?" Russell turned his head with some impatience on his face. "Isn't it just transformation, do you think you will?" Russell shrugged his shoulders. Suddenly, a halo divine ring that exuded a rainbow lit up in the back of the head. 3 pairs of huge wings spread out sharply from behind, and the white wings swayed slightly in the air. And in addition to the same taste of holiness, a faint, indescribable holy song sounded. Bruce was squeezed back several steps by his wings. At this time, his eyes widened, and he looked at the picture in front of him in disbelief. It was a shock from the depths of the soul, a shock from the heart. Angel. He could never have imagined that Russell, who looked a little bad, was an angel. And there is no harm without contrast. In contrast, the woman on the opposite side, who has a pair of wings, looks too ordinary. Angela was also stunned all of a sudden. 3-winged angel. How so? God's 4 angelic groups are all 2-winged angels, and the 3-winged angels are obviously only in legends. Why is there really one? But in the next second, her face changed and she suddenly changed back to human form. Then he knelt down directly, with a very crisp plop, his head crawled on the ground, shivering, and did not dare to raise his head. Angela did not feel that the other party was a liar. No matter what, the strong angel power behind the other party cannot be fake. And that divine ring made her understand the gap between them like a chasm. She had only seen it in archangels. Therefore, don't recognize it or not, just surrender quickly. At this time, Bruce poked his head out from the edge of his wings, and just saw the scene of the female angel kneeling, and immediately gasped. Isn't it Batmobile and Batfighter? How is one enough? Go back and let Afu order parts and make him 7 or 8 cars. Russell slowly fell to the ground. The other party's kneeling gave him a little bit of nothing. Are all angels so intimidated now? However, there is no doubt that the other party has the smell of demons, and he really does not care about clearing the portal for the old man of God. Sensing the arrival of killing intent in an instant, Angela suddenly trembled and exclaimed, "Lord Angel, I have a hard time. There are so many demons in Los Angeles that I can't fight at all. So I had no choice but to cooperate with the demon meal guy to eradicate other demons and minimize losses." Russell scoffed, "It's surprising that you didn't even fall into a fallen angel. It seems that you really still have human beings in your heart." He says this for a reason, because angels who truly fall do not need punishment and automatically become fallen angels. But why don't you ask heaven for help? Russell asked again. Angela buried her head lower, and said with a little grievance, "The human beings of this city not only do not believe in our Lord, but indulge in lust and are willing to fall. As the guardian angel of Los Angeles, my divine power has become more and more confused. By the time I notice it, I can't go back to the Silver City, and I can't even make contact." Hearing this, even Bruce was silent. He can be sure that Gotham doesn't have demons, but it's more like hell than Los AC. Perhaps it has been abandoned by God. Russell also understood why the other party cooperated with Nigel. However, the death penalty can be avoided, and the living crime cannot be escaped. "If you are not degenerate, I will punish you for being a nun here for 300 years, will you accept it?" Angela nodded heavily and said with tears, "I do." Russell raised his palm, and a silver-white chain entered Angela's body. This is the sealing magic from the Bone King, and sealing a low-level angel is more than enough. Feeling the divine power completely disappeared, Angela felt her body become heavy, as if she had been a human being. It wasn't until Russell and the 2 left that Angela got up from the ground. She was relieved. Both because he didn't have to die, but also because Chicago was saved. With such a powerful angel, the demon Nigel will definitely not be able to return to hell. On the street, Bruce stopped talking until several minutes later. I thought you were going to kill that angel just now. Do I look cruel? Russell asked strangely. Bruce shook his head. That's not true. I thought heaven should be very strict in this regard. Russell smiled. Since her wings are still white, it doesn't hurt to give her a chance for the time being. For now? Bruce was a little puzzled. Russell looked to the side, as if his gaze had come to an extremely distant place. If you just cooperate with one of the demons and kill the other 5, then you really spare her life. If there was cooperation before, then let her never see God. However, Russell felt that this probability was unlikely, otherwise the other party would have already fallen. As if thinking of something, Russell showed his white teeth and smiled. Let's go, and see what this big demon who occupies the City of Angels is capable of. Hope to surprise me. Looking at Russell's kind smile, Bruce's heart trembled. He thought that demon might be out of luck. Episode 120. The cool breeze at night passes through the city, but it can't take away the blazing heat emanating from people's hearts. Inside the Hell nightclub, the demons dance. Humans are addicted to lust, demons are passionate about flesh and blood. As for the great devil Neil Guy, it is much more elegant. He sat on the sofa on the high platform on the second floor, condescendingly admiring the scenery below, while drinking blood-red wine, chewing on desperate souls. Such a day is simply wonderful, 10,000 times better than a dangerous hell. Thanks, Constantine. Neil Guy toasted to the void in a similar way, and then laughed. Snap. Suddenly, a white palm slapped Neil Guy's shoulder twice, and then said, "Thank you early, right?" Neil Guy felt creepy for a moment. Just like a fried cat, the pigskin used for camouflage on the body was instantly shattered, and the whole body suddenly burst into the air. Who is it? Neil Guy looked back and realized that it was a human who had just patted himself on the shoulder. He was shocked and angry in his heart. I was shocked that I didn't notice the other party at all. It was angry that a human dared to shoot himself, and at this time, he even ignored himself and looked down. In the next second, he saw the disgust on the other party's face, and casually threw a black ball the size of a bottle cap downwards. Without any warning, Neil Guy instantly gave birth to a feeling of heart palpitations and his scalp numb. The sixth sense was telling him that the black ball was dangerous. How is it possible? Am I on Earth too long? Just when Neil Guy thought that he was wrong, he saw that black ball, the size of the bottle cap, instantly expanded and wrapped the entire hall below. After a second, the black ball disappears. Also disappearing was the entire existence wrapped in the black ball, leaving only an extremely smooth and regular hemispherical pit on the ground. The noisy and chaotic world instantly quieted down. Russell is very satisfied with the skill of black holes. And for Neil Guy, it's terrifying. He could see that if the skill just now fell on him, he would not be able to run away at all. There is nothing wrong with the crazy alarm of the sixth sense. And what is even more terrifying is that this is just the magic that the other party puts casually. Maid, where did this murderer come from? Neil Guy's pitch-black demon face instantly turned a little whiter, and he stretched out his hand and slashed in the void in front of him, suddenly revealing a scarlet crack. Then he didn't hesitate and turned his head to drill in. What a shit day this is. The world is too dangerous, or hell is safe. As for the Foundation? Don't be funny, which has its own life is important. But just then a faint voice sounded. Did I let you go? Russell's face was indifferent, raised his palm and gently twisted it into the air, and the gap in hell in the distance instantly closed and disappeared. Warp space. Neil Guy stopped in shock, almost cursed. Just a little. If he had just been faster, at least his head would have passed. Although seriously injured, at least he escaped. Now that hell will definitely not go back, Neil Guy turned around and said without hesitation, "Powerful humans, let's make a deal. I can serve you for 10 years for free." "No, 100 years, how do you look? And my magic, my ability, you can borrow it at will without paying any price, you see. As a demon, you must learn to bully the soft and fear the hard, otherwise you will not live long." It's good that he hasn't forgotten this skill. Hearing this, Russell showed a rather kind smile. Speaking of which, there is one thing I really need your help with. When Neil Guy heard this, he immediately slapped his chest and said flatteringly, "No problem, wrap it around me. If I refuse, it's not a fire demon." In midair, Bruston, who was hidden in the mirror space, showed a pitying gaze. Can this fool also be a demon? Sure enough, the next moment he saw Russell with a malicious smile on his face and spoke. "Honorable Mr. Demon, I would like to ask how to preserve your body intact. Do you have any secrets? Speaking of which, this matter is one of the main purposes for which he came to DC. This is different from Marvel, and many great demons in the Hell dimension are extremely eager to enter the world. And it just so happens that he will summon the black magic of demons. So once you can figure out a way to preserve the demon corpse and prevent its energy from dissipating after death, then you will make a lot of money. At that time, as many demons as you can be tricked over, you will trick as many demons as you want, and after being slaughtered, return to Marvel and devour them in dimensional space. Of course, the mouth still needs to be controlled to some extent. Otherwise, it is not very fun for the three palace demons to come out, and it is very bad to fight. As for the first fallen and Lucifer, there is no need to think too much. The former cannot leave hell, and the latter originally depends on the other party's own mood. Here, Nilgai, who knew that he had been tricked, roared incompetently and furiously, and then turned his head and fluttered his wings and ran. It is impossible to fight, you will not fight in this life, only by running can you have a little chance of survival. Crash! In an instant, Nilgai broke through the stained glass window and flew towards the sky. Russell didn't chase, just unhurriedly raised his right hand into a fist, and then spewed hellfire on it. The next moment, he swung forward hard. In an instant, two portals formed at the same time. Russell's burning fist came out of the portal and faced the oncoming Nilgai door, and a solid punch came. In an instant, a huge force shook the brain, and hellfire burned the skin. Nilgai suddenly screamed, feeling that his brain was almost shaken into paste. He didn't even see how the attack just now happened. There is no chance at all. Nilgai was no longer entangled, and his body split into dozens of flames in the process of falling, flying in different directions. Although doing so will lose a lot of strength. But as long as he escapes one, he can live. At this moment, Nilgai regretted why he was summoned by Constantine in the first place. How happy it was then, how painful it is now. If you don't come to the world, where are there so many broken things now? Russell was still standing in place, his face calm, and his hands suddenly folded. In an instant, a dazzling red light appeared, shining out along the hole. The flames that were shining in the sky suddenly stopped, and the next moment they suddenly converged, and their eyes scarlet flew back towards Russell. Forced taunt. Nilgai panicked in his heart, but found that he couldn't control his body at all and turned back to attack. Nope. With a terrified scream, he opened his mouth and spewed out fiery flames at Russell. Russell didn't dodge, and also blew out a breath. In an instant, the ice-blue airflow swept up, easily freezing the flames, and then spread towards Nilgai's direction. At this moment, the alarm when he had just seen the black ball sounded in Nilgai's heart again. You will die if you touch it. Nilgai didn't care about anything anymore, and directly urged his fire demon core with all his strength. He's going to be desperate. Click. A crack appeared in the demon core, and immediately an incomparably violent power burst out from inside. In the outside world, a large number of magma flow-like cracks appeared on Nilgai's skin, and terrible heat surged from his body. At the same time, in the huge hall, a terrifying hellish phantom descended. At this moment, Nilgai is equivalent to being in hell, and his power is multiplied furiously. But he still didn't see a trace of nervousness on the other party's face. This calm made Nilgai instinctively feel uneasy in his heart. The next moment, he saw that the other party's eyes seemed to brighten. No, your body doesn't belong to you. Russell's voice fell faintly, and the next second instantly appeared in front of Nilgai. The palm wrapped around the power of the angel desperately strangled Nilgai's neck, and then the power of the bull spell burst out and slammed the other party to the ground. The next moment, the power of the horse spell instantly healed the opponent's body and demon core. Nilgai struggled, but found that he couldn't even move, and his eyes were suddenly full of despair and fear. Now you can die. Russell's eyes erupted with lasers surrounding golden thunderbolts, and instantly disappeared into Nilgai's golden vertical pupils. No screaming, no struggle. In an instant, the demon that had tormented Constantine for 10 years tilted its head silently and died, leaving only its empty eyes with faint blue smoke.